begin by explaining who Colonel Mutui is and who issued that instruction.
Thank you, Commissioners. The normal standard operational procedure within our crime intelligence environment, because the threat and risk assessment are one of our responsibilities. If we can refer back to the addresses where the letter was sent to, there is no reflection of anyone who is within crime intelligence. So the requester will send the letter to the immediate commander of the member or the members involved, as well as the provincial and national top management. So in this case, after the letter was received by the provincial commissioner, he then channeled it to the provincial head of crime intelligence in Gauteng province, which is Major General Madlanga, who then assigned that investigation of this threat and risk to a Colonel Mutui, who is the commander of counter-intelligence investigations within Gauteng province, who was then instructed by not one of the addresses, but by the Major General Madlanga, the provincial head of crime intelligence, to conduct that investigation.
What does that investigation involve?
Without maybe exposing the whole methodology, which is mostly of corporate nature, I will say it looks at the individual as well as all types of security around an individual or a subject of investigation, starting from where the individual lives, to where the individual works, and to the lifestyle itself, as well as all other people that are interacting with the subject of investigation. It's a process where, after all those are identified and the information collected, there will be a thorough analysis that will be checking the facts collected against the threats and vulnerabilities as identified from the requester, to determine the likelihood of that, because by that time it is looked at as a potential risk. That analysis will be done then to determine the likelihood or the unlikelihood of that potential risk then to materialize. That is what, in short, in brief, the process is about.
Thank you, General. And so what was the finding of this particular investigation, threat and risk assessment?
The finding of this whole investigation of the threat and risk assessment against the investigators on this case was found to be, the risk level was found to be high, which is the highest level of risk assessment.
And if I can just ask you to turn to page 162 of the annexures bundle. So that's SDK 16. 162. Is this the affidavit by the colonel who did the TRA?
That is correct, Commissioners. It happened that during the application of need to pay for the threat and risk assessment that was to be used or included then in the statements. But then, because the threat and risk assessment report itself, it's a classified document with all the details that we do not want it to be made public, then the decision was taken that the penalty who was doing the physical threat and risk assessment submits the statement that confirms without details the threat and risk assessment that he conducted.
So when did he conclude his TRA, and when was it signed?
The threat and risk assessment itself was concluded during August, and it was signed off on the 16th of August.
So the fact that this affidavit was signed on the 17th of May 2025 is not a reflection of when the TRA was conducted, but because this was for the purposes of the bail application.
Yes, Commissioner, the sort of explaining that the affidavit was done way after the threat and risk assessment was concluded. It was just meant for bail position.
Thanks. So, General, the next two paragraphs summarize what witnesses A and B were to come and provide evidence onto this commission, and we don't need to traverse that. It's there in your statement, and witnesses have now testified. Can we please go to paragraph 101 of your statement, because this is where you say, this is where you became involved. After the threat and risk assessment was concluded, you were approached for assistance. Can you explain that, please? Who approached you and when?
Thank you, Commissioners. As it's also part of our standard operational procedures, the provincial head will receive the final, according to their level, the final threat and risk assessment report before signing it off, and then the provincial head will go through the threat and risk assessment, including the recommendations that are included, and then if it happens that the provincial head is of the opinion that that particular threat and risk assessment need to be escalated at national level for their views and also for their concurrence, depending. That happens mainly with the high profile threat and risk assessment and also those that are rating the risk at the highest level. So that is what happened in this case. My office was approached by the provincial head of Current Intelligence Accounting with a view of briefing me and presenting this draft threat and risk assessment for my concurrence and my input.
And what type of input will you have provided?
After a thorough briefing and also going through the draft threat and risk assessment, there were lots of red flags that pointed towards being a very serious, different threat and risk assessment. In the threat and risk assessment, even from the request by the senior state prosecutor, there were reference made
sorry to interrupt you, General. You described the TRA or a small situation than the TRA is open court different from what you mean by that.
Thank you, Commissioner. The reference to different is most of the threat and risk assessment requested in this station that we do, it will be mainly where the potential enemy, if I may put it in a layman's language, of a particular subject of investigation, it's someone that will have a plan to neutralize as soon as possible. So the use of unusual or different refers to the emphasis that was put from the request to the TRA itself that was talking to a syndicate. Now, a syndicate meant that we need to identify all other potential risk areas other than to concentrate on, for an example, other than to concentrate on the name that was mentioned in the request of a warrant officer down. So we had to take it further and define the syndicate so as then we are able. Now, because the request and the TRA were making reference to the warrant officer down and the hit squad or hit men that were neutralized by them, it was going to be looked at as the usual TRA. But because of the emphasis and evidence of the involvement of a syndicate, that has not yet been identified. That's why then we looked at it different and we used it different.
And that was your call.
That was my call.
And so what did you recommend?
Then, as reflected, I recommended that we register a counterintelligence investigation, which was going to focus mainly on the identification of the whole syndicate, because now to have countermeasures or protective measures that are directed towards DAO and those that are arrested already was not going to be effective according to my assessment. That is why then there is the decision to register counterintelligence investigation to identify more of those that might be involved in the syndicate. In order to protect, as I reflected during my initial testimony, that a counterintelligence investigation is there to protect the operations of the South African Police Service. Now, the operations, they include both the operators or the operator as well as the activities. In this case, the investigation itself that it becomes a success.
So was it through those investigations that you were able to identify Mr. Molefe as a suspect?
That is very correct. It was through the counter-intelligence investigation that was now, maybe before I get straight to the answer of the question by the senior counsel, let me explain the second most important recommendation that I had included in the initial draft TRA presented to me by the Provincial Intelligence Laundry. We also recommended that after the counterintelligence investigation is registered, because we registered it as a project, after it has been registered, it has to be met counterintelligence investigations and organized crime investigation.
Thank you, General. I'm sorry to interrupt your evidence, but Chair, it's come to my attention that some of the issues and contents of the witness's statement is being projected in public. I wasn't aware because it doesn't come up on the screens in front of me at all. But as a result, information that should not be public is being made public. May I ask that there's no projection unless I request it?
They will take to our records to use
I appreciate it.
that's it.
Yeah, let's go, brother.
We take the fee because black people
What's that legend?
That's why I see me like
Yeah, firstly, before we get into that, what we heard from evidence leader Adila Hassim is that it has come to the Commission's attention that some of the annexures within the testimony of crime intelligence boss Dumisani Kumalo have been projected into the public, and therefore the media team, which has been insourced by the Commission, has been called into an urgent meeting, as obviously this could compromise the sensitivity of the testimony. But remember that
operation. Is that right?
That is correct, commissioners. As I reminded the commission that he was still playing the dual role of the project leader of the PKTT as well as the Division of Intelligence. So when then the GCI Ops was born, one of the shortcomings that we identified was firstly the approach itself. The investigation was following what I referred to, and I will still refer to it as traditional way of investigating, which is not suitable to investigate organized crime. So we had to then have a discussion with the provincial commissioner of where the PKTT is operating in the form of requesting support. So yes, because it was clear, because already some of the cartel members had been identified. Now, for that type of investigation, we needed to switch from the traditional way of investigation to the organized crime investigation, which I refer to as analysis-driven and procedural-led investigation. Hence, then the beginning of November, we started those discussions and we agreed with the Provincial Commission President that we are going to request the analysts, all types of analysts.
Let me pause you just for a moment, Jack. When you say we had those discussions and we decided, who do you mean by we?
I'm referring to myself as the custodian of GCI Ops as well as the project leader of the PKTT with the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal where PKTT is based.
Okay, so you were discussing this with Lieutenant General Kunas.
That is correct.
Okay, continue, I interrupt.
And then the first batch or the batch of the experts that we had to assign to the GCI Ops from the PKTT were, as I've said, mainly experts. We had to get a ballistic expert because from the information gathered, it was clear that it would be another investigation support that the team will need. paint one picture. So it's an overall analysis that must be able to read and interpret the digital forensic analysis report, ballistic report, all data report. So we needed that center of analysis. We also realized that we need the overall command. In the PKTT, we had developed suitable commanders that are able to understand all the different work that is done by experts. That's why we had to be specific, because in most cases in the police we find a commander who's a specialist in business policy command or crime investigation command, but the capability that we had built in the KTT was for the commanders that are able to understand all that is expected to be done in a multidisciplinary. It must be a person who must be able to supervise the ballistic analyst, not by being an analyst, but by understanding what needs to be done. Hence, then we had to include in our list professional commander. Also, the other aspect that we requested was designated firearm officer that talks to the characteristics of most of the syndicates. This cartel, as I referred to last time, that one of the common denominators is for the cartel members who specialize in private security, having companies that are doing private security in order to collect as much firearms as possible. So for that we needed an expert in the firearm area, from the importation to registration to managing or controlling those firearms. And we also had to request an investigating officer who was going to join the two investigating officers that we had at the beginning. The purpose for that was twofold, was to assist them in the caseload, because the cases were increasing almost every day. But most importantly was to try and bring someone with the idea of the PKTT's method of operating to link with the two initial investigating officers, so as then we upgrade, it's the wrong way to use, we upgrade them and as quickly as possible to be at the level of the PKTT investigation. So hence then our request was for 10 of PKTT members, 10 made up of those experts that have experience.
So is anyone who said something about the level of investigation? And my question is, why did you get the analysis from the PKTT? Could you not get them from, say, Cape Town or within Captain or the Free State or Malawi? Why did they specifically come from the PKTT?
Thank you, Commissioner. The main reason is we have seen what we have achieved within the PKTT. We will receive an expert from their respective units. Yes, there will be experts, but there will be lots of other areas that we'll have to work on to make them to improve on their fields of expertise. The first one being in the PKTT, we as specialists are operating within their fields, they only see themselves and what they have to do. There is no link where you link the different experts so as that they can give you the desired results. And maybe to that, the other reason is the turnaround time of whatever that is happening in the PKTT. We've made it such that it's far much better than the normal SAPS spreadsheet operating.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you give us a practical example of this turnaround time that you refer to? What would be the difference in the PKTT versus what you say is not the same in the normal SAPS rules?
Yeah, maybe so as I don't make the work of the Commission difficult or quote on one of the evidence that has been read here, which is the ballistic analysis. We put it such that the ballistic experts must understand that he or she is playing a supportive role of the investigation. The more time you spend on producing the report, you are delaying the investigation. So now, because each and every investigation has got a plan, so the physical work, the investigating officer would not want them to miss the targets and the timelines because of a particular specialist that is bringing his or her own turnaround time. I would say where we saw it working for us was or is the ballistic analysis. The reason why we normally use it is in our report we were flagging on ad hoc cases that will be generated from the intelligence-driven operations where we're looking for firearms. So in most cases, those operations will be on Fridays during the proper time, but on Fridays. So because we will be having a target that we have intelligence that is in possession of a firearm that was used in a particular case. So the work of a ballistic expert will start Friday midnight or Friday or Saturday morning when we come back with that firearm. The target is by Monday when we go to court to enroll the possession of unlicensed firearm. It's already linked with the main case that we're investigating. But all the turnaround times are made shorter because they have to fit the investigation plan. Whether it's called data analysis, if the request by the investigating team to the call data analysis is to quickly analyze the movement using the towers, that will be giving them a shorter turnaround time because it has to allow the taskings and the responsibility of the investigator to continue so as then the investigation plan is not delayed because of the expert. So it's one of the reasons why we had to tap on the tried and tested personnel from the PKTT. Our timeline, although it's not included in my affidavit, but if we look at the time the experts
so 19 November 2024 that these 10 members were seconded to GCI Ops and they began their work immediately. And you say they were recruited specifically for their expertise, and you couldn't obtain that kind of expertise in part-time in normal units. Could you explain that?
Yeah, it's not that we, Commissioner, it's not that we could not. The experts are there, but the way of operating, starting from the attitude towards your work, which is more about, because I think I indicated previously that the way of the methodology in the PKTT is different from the normal SAPS way of doing things. Every day there are accounting sessions, every day. When you go out, maybe let me start by, you don't go out to do what you think and feel needs to be done. The day before, the team will sit, and then the operational analyst who's having all the information in front will then give the direction, which will give rise to the taskings. Like the investigation team must go and obtain statement from A and B, and the statement must contain this. And then when that comes, then the team will sit again to account and verify the feedback, whether it's talking to the. So we wanted, because we could see, as I've said, that they were, because this now was a different operation, a counterintelligence investigation, as I reflected that one of the objectives of counterintelligence is to neutralize the threat. So you cannot then leave the threat being there for ages. So the quicker you neutralize the threat, then the quicker then the level of risk is going down, because there are lots of logistics that are put in place to make sure that the investigation and investigators are protected. So for us to achieve that, not that we undermine the experts that are all over the country, but we know that we rather opt for the ready-made group that is suitable for what we have.
General, why can't the board of operation think that it will be replicated throughout the country? If that end of the commission's life is intended to see level for it, we are satisfied that the PKTT works better than SAPS. This is a question of many Africans like this. Why can't
Thank you, Commissioner. In all our reports, that is included as one of the recommendations to the powers that we recommend that this methodology is used as a benchmark to try and change the way we are investigating crime, because our traditional way is still suited for normal crime, so common, so but then when it comes to organized crime, the same traditional ways are not applicable. So we will recommend that with all our reports. There's been attempts, Commissioner, if I may divert from your affidavit, there's been attempts members of SAPS to come and sit with the PKTT and then. So we will have classes at night, and then during the day we send them out with the teams for practicals. And it was a successful intervention or attempt. The problem started then when they had to go back and implement, because now those that are expected to implement or supervise the implementation were not understanding. We were trained 6 members from the Congo. When they get back home to their commanders, they are going back to the old ways. Hence, then the second attempt was with Western Aid, where the National Commissioner instructed that the Provincial Commissioner himself be part of the team that will go and learn. One can say that showed some positive results because now the man in charge of the project has got that understanding to implement. So hence then we believe that this model of PKTT can be used as a transition from the normal or traditional way of investigating to this one that is suitable for the problems that we are facing as a country at this moment. We look at, there was a time when I think I had a session with the crime scene experts. Then the first question of the PKTT, the first question I asked as to how many are you countrywide? They gave me the number that is almost 2 times more than the police stations that we have. Then I said, then why then you have your units somewhere instead of having each station allocated the expert that. So as we move, the second most important investigative aid that we will need to prioritize is called data analysis. Almost everybody is having gadgets nowadays, and the way it helps in terms of investigation and also fast tracking. So in trying to answer your question, Commissioner, I was very long, but I was trying to show that there's been attempts, but it won't be the first time that the PKTT model is recommended. It has been recommended by ourselves and then also accepted by some of the principals within SAPS.
At the beginning of your response, you said you made recommendations to the open code powers that be closed code. Who are those powers?
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I was referring to, in terms of accountability, the PKTT is reporting firstly to the Provincial Steering Committee that is made up of the top management of those stakeholders that are within the province. So when we submit the report, we include that recommendation so as they can see if they can do something. Same applies to national.
I'm not sure that that answers my question. You said that you have made recommendations to the powers that be that the mode of operation of the PKTT be adopted nationwide. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yes. Now my question is, who are the powers that be that you made your recommendations to? I would imagine it must be at national level.
Thank you, Commissioner. I started at provincial level. I was moving on to say even within the National Steering Committee meeting chaired by the National Commissioner, even when we are submitting the the periodical reports to the National Commissioner, we will include that recommendation, even when we have to submit the report to the interministerial or even the Ministry of Police, we will include that recommendation. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the initiative of Western Cape team led by the Provincial Commissioner was recommended by the Ministry when then that report was tabled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So you would have made the recommendation to the Minister, to the National Commissioner, as well as other ministers within the Interministerial Committee that was having oversight of the PKTT.
Yes, Commissioner.
So that was a small diversion. Let's return to where we were, the secondment of the team, and particularly because of the importance of the working method of this team that led to the arrest of Mr. Molefe on the 6th. And that brings you to paragraph 107 of your statement. Now, General, you'll see that the next few pages, all the way up to paragraph 124, describes the events that took place on the 6th of December when Mr. Molefe was being arrested, or what you call in Hollywood style, takedown. So that's what these paragraphs describe, the takedown of Mr. Molefe. Now, we've heard from quite a number of witnesses already. The Commission has heard from many witnesses, witness A, B, C, Captain Wanda, Captain Kruger, a range of people right until yesterday. So that's been detailed for the Commission, the details of all of those events. I don't think it's necessary for us to go through these paragraphs in detail. However, I would like you to explain some things for the Commission, including why you describe these events as interference. And I just want to begin by asking you whether you had overall coordination of this operation that was taking place on 6 December.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Maybe to give a little bit of background to the part that the Senior Counsel is directing me to talk to, I'll link it with my last statement that said when the experts were brought in from the 19th of November, and then by the 6th of December, we were ready for the first takedown. And then the investigation with the assistance of all these experts made it possible for us to obtain the warrant of arrest of Mr. Katiso Mlife on the 5th of December. That's when then we had to start preparing for the takedown or the arresting of Molefe the following day. Then, which was then on the 6th December. So what we did, because within, as I've said, this is a GCI Ops, which has got a lot of intelligence activities within. So there are continuous threat and risk assessments that are done, even when you plan for the takedowns. There will be a lot of pre-activities that will take place. Hence, then, maybe before I get to the 6th, I must reflect that and remind the commissioners that we had carried also that kidnapping case or investigation that was assigned to the team also during around October, November, during the same time. So we had collected a lot of intelligence and information that needed us to conduct then the search and questioning of a suspected person involved. Hence, then, on our planning for the 6th operation, we had to include also that part of searching and questioning an identified target on the kidnapping case. So we had to do that. So we had to mobilize additional resources for the 6th. So in order for us not to remobilize the following week for the search and questioning, then we decided to combine both the operations to take place on the 6th.
So the two operations you're referring to then is the takedown of Mr. Molefe and then the questioning of Mr. Madlanga.
Yes.
So both took place on the 6th of December.